It's another beautiful Tuesday morning. This is Smooth 98.1, your love music, love life station. 18th day in the month of February 2025. February also galloping along. The second month in the year is gradually pulling away. And we'll be talking about March, April. Before you know it, we'll probably be talking about Merry Christmas once again. But hey, I get ahead of myself. There's still a lot of time before we get to that point. Let's deal with what's in front of us. Let's make the best of the day. Copy DM, seize the day, my people. Ayokunmi, Kekireko, right here, ready to get you into the world of the papers. Take a look at the headlines, the major stories that are making the rounds, and we get to have a back and forth. That is, you also get to have your say, your opinions, your thoughts. They are most welcome. We look forward to them every single time we get on Freshly Pressed. The WhatsApp number to send your messages to hasn't changed. It's 0809 444 0981. 0809 444 0981. That is the WhatsApp number. You can also join us on YouTube, where we're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. That is if YouTube is your thing. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can drop your comments there as well. I will definitely be taking them alongside the WhatsApp messages. All right, joining me to analyze the stories this morning, take a look, just break it all down and make sense of it all for us. Mr. C is joining us this morning. Good morning to you, Mr. C.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Lagos.
Alrighty, hopefully Chibuzor will join us as well, so it become a terrific trio on the show. But for now, Ayo and Mr. C are going to be doing justice to what's been going on in the news. And what better place to start than in Lagos State? I mean, if unless you've been living under a rock, you must be aware of the latest developments. Let's jump into the punch to start with, where it says there was chaos at the Lagos State House of Assembly yesterday as the Department of State Services invaded, I'm using that in quotes, the assembly allegedly on the orders of the clerk. Now in the ensuing melee, the lawmakers forcefully gained entry into the hallowed chamber and declared their support for the Speaker Mojisola Miranda. Now, the Governance Advisory Council, the highest decision-making body of the APC, the All Progressives Congress in Lagos, has, however, reaffirmed its plans to meet with President Bola Tinubu over the ongoing crisis in the State House of Assembly. Mr. C, I'm pretty sure you saw the videos yesterday. It seemed like something out of a Michael Bay movie. It was, I don't know how exactly to describe it. And this is off the back of the removal of the former speaker, that's Mudashiru Obasa. He's gone to court already, stating that his removal wasn't done appropriately and so on and so forth. It seems like there are moves under the ground to, should I say, remove the current speaker, Mujisola Miranda, as it were. But what is your take on this particular situation, Mr. C, where we are on the matter right now?
Okay, thank you, Ayo. So yesterday we witnessed the current episode of the ongoing series of shame being displayed by the APC in Lagos State. Remember, the Lagos State House of Assembly is almost dominated or populated by the APC. In fact, it doesn't have a minority leader. So what that tells the average listener is that there are no opposition members in the Lagos State House of Assembly. Because if there was even one opposition member, automatically he will become the minority, he or she will become the minority leader. Now, yesterday, we saw operatives of the Department of State Security within the House of Assembly premises. There were different narratives and perspectives flying all over the place. One school of thought suggested that they invaded the place unlawfully to intimidate and threaten the members of the House of Assembly and the workers attached to the House of Assembly, right, only for us to then see a letter written by the acting clerk to the Lagos State House of Assembly requesting for additional operatives. Now, in all of that, we're treated to episodes ranging from purely comedic to very tragic and shameful. We saw a speaker crying, only the good Lord knows why she was crying. We saw people making noise, shouting, and this is supposed to be the economic and financial capital of Nigeria. Again, the mythical investors they want to literally abduct and drag into Nigeria forcefully. Watch this episode. Now, why is all of this happening? Sometime in January, the purportedly removed the former Speaker, Mr. Obasa. It has since turned out that on the day in question, they didn't have the official mace with them. There are two official maces. Mr. Obasa hid both of them. Now, that is condemnable in itself, and that is why the former clerk was suspended or removed or fired. We don't even know what the current status is with him. Now, Mr. Obasa has now gone to court, and interestingly, he's taking an option that won't take time. He's asked for the matter to be decided by originating summons. Now, what that means for listeners who are listening to the show and don't know what that stands for is that when you commence an action by originating summons, you don't call any witnesses. You just present documents to the court, and the court then interprets the document and gives a considered judgment. Now, Mr. Obasa has taken the assembly to court. He has asked for the proceedings to be accelerated. Now, whilst all of this is going on, Mr. President had directed that Mr. Obasa should be returned to office, then he would resign honorably, and then they can then select the leader they want. The House of Assembly, for reasons best known to it, has refused to comply, insisting that Mrs. Miranda is their speaker. Not a problem. This is a matter that should not have been allowed to drag on for this long. And whether the House of Assembly members like it or not, Mr. President will get his way eventually. It's only a matter of time. Now, the GAC, which is supposedly the highest decision-making body within the APC, and I must stress this, it is an unelected body, which is truly amazing because I've not seen a constitution of the APC for Lagos State, but it's interesting how unelected individuals have more power, have the final say over the elected state executive. Now, will Mr. Obasa return? Suggestions within political circles suggest that his return is imminent. Now, the GAC, which is also divided, says it's going to further meet with the president. Remember, Mr. Obasa is a member of the GAC. Now, Mr. President has advised that ahead of 2027, the House of Assembly members should be careful how they carry out this exercise so that they don't jeopardize the party's ambitions come 2027. So high stakes maneuvering, we will see what happens. But if I were to advise the House of Assembly members, reach an agreement that he can come back in, he has to resign within a set number of days or weeks, and then re-elect your current speaker as a speaker until 2027. That way, nobody's ego is bruised, nobody feels humiliated or shunned, and then supposedly they can continue being the family they believe they are. But to the rest of Lagos, none of the nonsense that went on yesterday benefits the average Lagosian on the streets of Lagos. They should stop the comedy, stop the shenanigans, and get down to serious business.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you for that, Mr. C. Chibuzor, welcome along to the show. I guess Network has permitted you to be a part of this. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Mr. C. I hope you guys can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can. And hopefully it stays that way.
Hopefully it does. So I just wanted to piggyback on what Mr. C has said earlier. So it's basically, it's drama, obviously high stakes drama for the involved parties. I think what I have is just two things, and it's a bit interesting. I know that the DSS is at close proximity or has a good office not too far from government house, so maybe that's why they are called in. But also is one of the concerns I have with the use of what used to be the state security service. There is, and people would say, hey, the police might not be equipped to deal with this, but that job is primarily for the police. The DSS is being used as almost like a private security enterprise for politicians. Now, I think it's been bad for a lot of years, but I think it's just gone to another level where every person will just call up the DSS office close by and say, you guys should send in officers to our side, and they trot down. I think it's a gross abuse of what they should be doing, but hey, I'll leave that to their employers to come and see what exactly is supposed to be the remit of the DSS. The second part I would speak to would be Mr. C's position as regarding how the president interference and the rule of the GAC. Obviously, GAC is unelected, but it's an institution that has serve the party in the way that that they have chosen to serve the party. And structures like GC will exist everywhere. It's the level of popularity that they have taken in Lagos compared to maybe other countries like US or wherever, where these structures would exist, that may be the cause of concern. So I don't really have so much of a problem with the way the GC operates, because at the end of the day, they are largely advisory, and they do form some level of checks and balance. But yes, I do understand why why there will be a concern in the democratic structure where you have an entity like that sits outside of the structure, that basically exists based on this either selection or how it's chosen. So it's a bit of a concern. But at the end of the day, politicians will be politicians, and they're trying to take their position. And there are no guarantees that Mr. Bassa would come back and take a walk for 2007 or 2027. He might come there and try to. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, there's a message here from Papi. Papi from Osapa says, Mr. C, it's all semantics. So it's all semantics to bring in Obasa. He resigns and then elect Miranda. Let's just move on from all this. Well, as she was alluded to, I mean, if he comes in and says, you know what, it feels good here. I don't want to step down. Another round of drama.
He can't. If he comes back and he has to go, he can't stay there. Mark my words.
Well, Mr. C, in Nigeria, there's nothing new under the sun from where I'm sitting. Anyways, let's keep things moving. Chibuzor, let's talk about something that has to do with the educational sector. Heading into the Guardian, where it says the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund, has announced that it has disbursed over 22 billion naira in student loans to over 200,000 applicants. Now, this comes as it has also announced the closure of the 2023-24 application process and the opening of the 2024-25 application portal. Now, speaking at the press conference in Abuja on Monday, the managing director of the fund, Akintunde Sawyer, revealed that while the 2023-24 application will close on February 21, 2025, the 2024-25 application will open on February the 22nd. And so he also said the fund has disbursed about 12 billion in upkeep support to 169,114 students. What are your thoughts on this particular one, Chibuzor?
Okay, so NEL Fund is what it is. So it's one of the flagship programs of this current government. I think it was the baby of the then House of Reps, member of the House of Reps, the Speaker of the House of Reps, who is now, I think, the Secretary to the federal government. And the purpose was basically to help fund tertiary education for Nigerian students, and has also opened up the door for Nigerian universities and Nigerian educational institutions, the Nigerian universities, to have a look at their previous pricing structures and have an up on it. So what NEL Fund does obviously is to support families, individuals who need support to be able to fund their tertiary education. They apply for it through the portal, payments go directly to the schools, and the plan is that you have to pay back when you graduate. I think now there was some statement about 2 years after you graduate, once you get a job or means of income. So that's what it is. So yeah, the MD of NEL Fund is basically giving us his success stories for the last 2 sessions, 2023, and what they're trying to do for the opening of the portal for the new session. So everyone who's interested or who needs it as a student and who qualifies is advised to encourage you to go and apply on the portals. I think, yes, the numbers are quite good. I do hope that there is some form of check on the numbers in terms of regular audits to see, to validate and verify these numbers that have come through. I think the major concern for NEL Fund from day one has been 2 things. How do we fund NEL Fund? And how does the money come back? Because these monies that are being given are expectedly loans. And the flip side of it is that, they're supposed to fund the students to be able to go to school, and once they're out of school, they're able to pay back after a given period of time. And the question is that, the question everybody has, while funding it is they've put in a process to fund it from private entities and other entities that would fund it. I think the big deal has been, how will this loan be paid back? Will it be sustainable long term? Because the expectation is that these guys would go through school, graduate, get jobs, or get means of income and can pay back. The question is then, when we look at the unemployment rates in the country, when we look at the rate at which the economy has, it's not expanded, but has contracted in recent years. How realistic are these expectations? Because this would be indicators of how long we would continue with Nelfund, or how quickly will Nelfund wrap itself up in the end of the day. So we do hope that at the one side, while the government has rolled this out, that the other steps that they are taking, or they are planning on taking, to expand the economy and make it a bit more productive, and make it open up the possibility for people to earn incomes that can pay back for those loans and pay back for people's needs, will make it possible for people to be able to pay back. And also things like, we talk about all these things all the time, keeping tabs on who's getting the funds, making sure that you have identity management and things like that are all key and necessary to be able to ensure that this program at the long term is sustainable, which is what Nigerians want to see. Long term. That's the biggest question against Nelfund: sustainability. Can we sustain this? That remains to be seen.
All right, thank you for that, Chibuzor. Mr. C, do you agree with that, sustainability being the biggest issue when Nelfund is concerned?
Yes, it is, because even in the 70s, we had a precursor to this scheme, which was a scholarship fund, and that's died because when a lot of Nigerians then took the loans, took the bursaries, took the scholarships, and then for whatever reason or set of reasons refused to return the money. So it's essential that they're able to get the monies back. But we'll see. We'll just watch and see. And finally, we now have a clear and undisputed win for this administration. So well done to them.
All right. Let's head into the vanguard, Mr. C. Let's talk about what's been going on concerning the U.S. and its deportation, or its planned deportation of Nigerians. And the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Mrs. Bianca Odumegwu-Ojukwu, has urged the U.S. to adhere to established protocols when deporting immigrants from its territory. Now, she made this appeal in a statement on Sunday in Abuja following a visit by the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Richard Mills Jr., to the ministry. Now, in a statement issued by Magnus Eze, Special Assistant Communication and New Media, she voiced concerns over the possible suspension of the U.S. Dropbox visa system. Mr. C, take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Ayo. So very quickly, the first thing I noticed, the substantive Minister for Foreign Affairs was nowhere to be found, and his absence was not explained because she's the Minister of State. Now let's jump into the visit. The ambassador visited the minister, and the Minister for State did express two major concerns. The first major concern was the US government has shortlisted 85 Nigerians to be deported in the first batch of illegal immigrants returned to their various countries. And she's asking that the US should send them back in a humane manner. Now, why did this become necessary? In the first batch of deportations we saw, especially to Central America and Latin America, we saw illegal immigrants being handcuffed and being restrained with leg chains. And Mrs. Odumegwu is saying that, look, there's no need for that. Yes, they've illegally stayed, you found them out, return them, but you don't need to restrain them. I think that's basically what you're saying. And I will agree with that because she came by way of an appeal. If the US government decides not to honor the appeal, there's absolutely nothing the Nigerian government can do about it because we no longer have that clout or prestige in the international community. Now, I'm going to contrast this with what happened in Germany, between Germany and Ghana. There were a number of Ghanaians who had illegally overstayed in Germany, and the German government was prepared to kick them out. But the Ghanaian government engaged the German authorities to see how they could regularize their stay there, even if it meant paying sanctions or penalties. Because the Ghanaian government made the argument that they've performed two roles. Whilst they're there illegally, they're still paying for services, they're still doing their bit, and then they're repatriating funds back to Ghana. So they didn't want a situation where both countries would lose. And I thought that would be the argument the Nigerian government would make. However, alas, we don't even have any ambassadors posted out. They still have not been posted out, which is really bordering on the incredulous. Then the Minister of State spoke about the possible Dropbox suspension. Now she's been given the official line that they're reviewing it. There's no timeline as to when it will be finally and completely reviewed. And I'm not sure they're applying this in a number of other countries. But again, it still boils down to the fact that we don't have the clout. So let's work on building ourselves into an economic powerhouse that when we then step forward and make our claims or our demands, they cannot be refused. But to the first batch coming back, sorry, it's tough, but Nigeria is not the most pleasant place to be returning to, but the government should try and help them as best as it can to resettle in. And as for the others who are still on their way, we can only wish them the very best.
We can only wish them the very best. I mean, at the end of the day, Nigeria remains home any way you actually want to look at it. Joseph Mania on WhatsApp says, how did we get here? The constitutional havoc the elites and politicians are wrecking will consume Nigeria and citizens. When impunity is the order of the day, look at what's happening in Osun and Lagos State Assembly, using security agencies to their selfish ends, yet the economy is on the downslide. Inflation and so on doesn't bother them, but to get power and money as well. Interesting thoughts there. And I'm actually glad that Joseph mentioned Osun State because Chibuzor, we need to talk about the drama going on in Osun State as well. We talked about Ondo State yesterday. Now it's Osun State today. This is coming out of the Daily Trust, and the local government chairman and councillors elected during the administration of former Governor Adegboyega Oyetola on Monday resumed at local government secretariats across the state, sparking tension. Now, the All Progressives Congress had said resumption by the chairman and councillors was consequent upon the judgment of the Court of Appeal in Akure, which overturned the judgment of the Federal High Court in Osogbo that removed them. Now, residents, especially those who live around the council secretariat, have been thrown into panic as a result of sporadic gunshots, and some deaths have been recorded, but an official casualty figure had not been released as at time of filing this particular report. Now, there were also reports that the former chairman of the Iriewole local government, Mr. Remi Abbas, who also resumed on Monday, was killed by hoodlums, although the Daily Trust could not authenticate this as of the time of filing this particular report. Because it seems like chaos and all sorts of shenanigans going on. I mean, we're seeing this happening in Lagos. There's stuff going on in Ondo State as well. Now, Osun State is in the eye of the storm.
I think what we're seeing is a reflection of the position of the political parties that take true treats. It's when we call about the call to power is typically about we've chosen that we'll go via democratic electoral means where people would ascend positions of power. But I think on the parts of the parties and institutions that we have, the parties basically that we have in Nigeria, there's still this mindset about state capture, political capture. It's a battle where they have to capture. So you have, there's this repeated use of the word hoodlums. And unfortunately, we have a country where there are too many young people who are jobless, who are easily motivated by some small change where they are, they don't value their lives or the lives of the next person on the street. And they're ready to put those lives on the line just to ensure some other fat cat, gets his seat back or gets whatever ego brushing in is, because that's what we've seen in Lagos, that's what we've seen in Ondo, that's what we're seeing here. It's at the end of the day, it's not about the people. The people are not being served. It's about the individuals who are the politicians. And it's sad to see because we should have made a lot more progress than we have today. I'm going to end my rant at that point. So what do we have here? I think over the weekend, towards the end of last week, the governor of the state, that's Governor Adeleke, quite went on the media and media channels and basically made allegations of the fact that the previous governor, who's now a minister in the federal government, was and his supporters were trying to cause mayhem in the state. And that whatever happens should be laid at their blame. So question is, was he crying wolf, or to set the precedence of what is happening now, what seems to be happening now, or was he laying the facts straight on the table? Now, what has happened obviously is that there was after the last elections, the parties had gone to the courts, basically asking for. The parties had gone to court challenging the removal of the local government chairman across and councillors
Right.
under the previous governor.
Mm.
Right, and apparently a judgment had been passed which overturned the previous judgment, which allowed these guys to go back to, or reinstated them. So these guys, obviously, under the backing of their political party, headed back to their offices, and that is where it appears the clashes have come from. They were probably met in some opposition, and because the information is not yet clear, even the numbers that we're dealing with in terms of deaths or casualties are not clear. A lot of the comments on this story are reportedly, but what we could assume is that obviously they went back to resume their duties, buoyed by the fact that the judgment had been passed in their favor, and they were met with the usual opposition, either by people sent by the opposition, either by hoodlums sent by the actual opposition, which would be the PDP in these guys, or their sympathizers who had gone to prevent them from resuming their work. And in usual Nigerian terms, both parties had clashed, and the blood was shed. Now, how many times can we go through this kind of situation? In Lagos, we barely avoided this because there was at least some level of restraint, and there was enough security forces called in by both sides, to stop it. But everywhere outside Lagos, where the spotlight outside Lagos, outside Abuja, where the spotlight is less, we have all these kind of things, and all we hear at the end of this are filtering of stories about deaths and what has happened, and casualties. We need to get to that point, and I keep on saying that where elections do not become the end goal, it becomes part of a process, and where we have some level of law and order. What he keeps telling me that the security forces, in terms of the police, are grossly inadequate across the country, and there needs to be a clear plan. I've not seen any government that's come and said, this is my clear plan in getting the police properly staffed, properly equipped, and properly oriented across the country. Right. Instead, we see police doing all sorts of other things that they are not used to. We need to set in security forces right. We need to ensure that the rule of law is held, and people who are responsible for some of these deaths are held accountable at the end of the day. It is not enough just to publish these numbers, but people should be held responsible for either equipping or funding or initiating these attacks. So we wait to see how when the numbers become clearer. On both sides. Unfortunately, the top guys are both sides. I don't see how they'll probably come out with additional denials, and their hands will be washed clean. And if anybody's going to be picked up for this, it will be the small fry at the end of the table. But that is the state of our Nigerian political situation today, and we are not moving. If we can't move this forward, it has an effect on everything we do, including our economy, and that's why we are stuck in the mud.
Indeed, people must be held accountable. Someone said something that still resonates with me up until this point, that no one rewards good and no one punishes bad. That is the Nigerian story. When anyone is held accountable, these are the sort of situations that we find ourselves in. Mr. C, I know time has absolutely flown by, but I need you to quickly touch on this issue concerning University College Hospital in Ibadan, where the Association of Resident Doctors have said they will embark on an indefinite strike if power is not restored to the residential areas of the hospital. And this could be, from frying pan to fire, as it were, concerning this situation that is on the ground right now. Really quickly, Mr. C.
Okay, so very quickly, the debt owed by UCH to Ibadan the distribution company is 495 million. Last week, Monday, the Minister for Power met with management of UCH and the management of IBEDC, and they came to some sort of agreement where the entire complex was divided into three. So the clinical area had power restored, but the residential areas and the commercial areas didn't have power restored. Now, the doctors are saying they bought hundreds of thousands of units that they are unable to use. And it makes no sense to have the clinical areas restored and the residential areas not restored, because the doctors will spend all day and possibly the nights attending to patients. Then they get home, there's no power. It makes absolutely no sense. But more importantly is, how is this debt still unpaid? What is the plan for defraying that debt? surely the government can pay off the IBEDC, given that there's money it always seems to produce for less serious engagements. So I support the doctors. If power isn't restored, they should go on strike, because you cannot expect me to give my very best in a clinical area, then I come home, I don't have power. And then you expect the next day that by some stroke of magic, you'll still get the best out of me. Life doesn't work that way. And maybe it's stuff like this that makes the people in power sit up, the people in authority do the proper things, which is truly regrettable.
Okay, let me take messages as we round up this morning. Jerry says, the APC government is the worst political government that has ever happened to us. Impunity taken to the highest heavens. This is what you get when even the number one is unpopular and generally, okay, well, I don't know about that other part. I don't know the meaning of a banana republic. Thank you for sharing your thoughts there, Jerry. Almost stepped on the banana peel there, reading your message. Gilbert Musa says, like what Mr. C said, the current student loan scheme is not new. A similar scholarship scheme in the 70s failed. Now, we should find out why it failed to prevent a reoccurrence with this latest scheme on the ground. This is Dr. Dr. Sai. She says, thank you for quoting me on Freshly Press. Yeah, she made the comment on Lagos Talks last week or thereabouts. Nobody rewards good and no one punishes bad. And she says, I'm glad it resonates with you. It definitely does resonate. Thank you for actually listening. Didn't know you were. Good to know that you actually are. Barrister Danakuda says, the Lagos State House of Assembly should be allowed to choose their presiding officers without undue interference from any quarters. Nigeria is not a banana republic. Second time in less than 2 minutes, I'm hearing banana republic. Ebilade Ambo from Badagry says, the minister is worried about the deportation process, but what is more inhumane than life in Nigeria? I feel sorry for the deportees. I'm very sure many of them will find their way back to America. With Trump in office, they should just stay here. I mean, at least they're home. Anyway, you look at it. Fabian from Ekpe says, I think all healthcare personnel across all tertiary hospitals should down tools until the government does something lasting. If they can put money for vehicles and more, they should do the same for those who care for their citizens. And Bolu says, and yet we don't want doctors to go to a saner climb. As they say on the streets, they play. They will go if they need to go. All right, we need to call it a morning. Thank you all so very much for all the messages. And a bigger thank you to you, Mr. C and Chibuzor, for joining me this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for always.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And Nigerians, let's just go out and make the best of this week.
Indeed, once again, Carpe Diem, seize the day and seize the rest of the week. My Latin doesn't extend to week, it just day. But anyways, you get the point. Keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. We'll take a walk into the grapevine at 8:15. It's all about the entertainment and so much more. There could be something for you to walk away with. I don't know. It's possible. All you need to do is keep it tuned and keep listening. Don't go anywhere.